Prison food is traditionally regarded as the nastiest of the nasty, but did you know that American corrections institutions also invented a punishment dinner named Foodloaf that is so disgusting that some men behind bars vomit at the sight of it? And yet, prisoners eat this monstrosity since sometimes Foodloaf will be the only item on the menu for weeks at a time. So, how did we get to this point? Well, let's gather the context by going way back to ancient times when prison sentences were generally seen as short affairs, either before a trial or before punishment was decided. Some prisoners were kept as slaves, being fed the basics such as bread, vegetables, and fruit, with meat being very rare. But as imprisonment as a means of reformation became more popular, it was likely that prisoners were fed the same thing, bread and water. But if we fast forward to Europe in the 16th century, prisoners were fed nothing at all, as they only survived on the little food that friends and family would bring them, or the food that they could buy from local distributors. And authorities took note of this kind of unusual economy. In other words, the prison systems began to see an opportunity for profit. They started closing the windows that these prisoners were receiving deliveries from and selling their own food inside the prison instead. The only catch? The food was massively upcharged. Jailers would find the cheapest, most low-quality food that they could come across to make a good profit, and safety or customer complaints were not exactly a concern, given the fact that prisoners were literally captive customers. Corners were cut. For example, liver was brought in instead of steak, and in some cases, the water, which was free from wells, was also given to prisoners at a fee. However, things changed during the Victorian era when prisons used manual labor to enhance prisoner punishment. It was thought that the physical toll would give them time to reflect on their actions and become better for it. These ranged from menial tasks like moving a cannonball back and forth to outright slave labor, such as mailbag sewing or laundry work. But there was a downside to this for the prison institutions. You see, the prisoners' calorie intake was not on par with the output, and hence in some cases, work became impossible. So prisons began to feed prisoners just enough to sustain their weight. Remember, the main purpose of the prison was reformation, and they wanted them to be able to find work once the sentence was up. So at this point, they cheapened the price of food and fed everyone just enough to sustain. In fact, curiously, around this time, some prisoners actually gained weight during their stay, and it's really no wonder why. You see, the prisoners, they were eating rubbish, a steady diet of gruel, a type of thinner porridge. But there was also a dish called stirabout, which was a gruel substitute made of salt, cornmeal, and oatmeal with bread. The better food was typically given to prisoners with the longer sentences, since they would be around longer, and hence they had more work to do. They would enjoy beef, mutton, cocoa, potatoes, pudding, and cheese. Prisoners who were sick would also benefit from fish and milk. Food for prisoners was improved even more in America with the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prison fighting for prisoners' rights. And with their help, in some cases, inmates were treated to stews of meat and vegetables, coffee with sugar, and ultimately bread. They also looked after quality to make sure that no contaminated meat made it into the soups, and that the seasonings consisted of actual herbs and spices as opposed to creative alternatives. Today, prison food has fallen far from that benchmark, where in some cases, modern for-profit prisons see food as a means for cutting costs. But in many cases, food is utilized for punishment. The Federal Bureau of Prisons provides its inmates with 3 nutritious meals daily, while other institutions at the state level or privately owned might offer 2 undernourishing meals at a maximum. BOP prisoners can find cooked meats such as beef, chicken, fish, lasagna, and burritos. Well, other prisoners are not so lucky. They're stuck with the same meat and vegetable mush daily, and these items are often served along processed fruits, juice, and milk. In fact, the food provided is so discouraging that prisoners frequently eat under the recommended daily calorie intake. In theory, some meals provide enough to feed one person, but the meals were spread far apart, at times as much as 10 hours, bringing prisoners to a state of near starvation. Apparently, it's been reported that some would attempt to eat toothpaste and toilet paper as a result of their desperation. But one fact that seems rather universal throughout the various prison systems is food being used as a punishment. This is where Foodloaf or nutraloaf comes in, a 20th century specialty, correctional dinner made of blended leftovers, a special prison recipe, or a random assortment of nasty slop. Foodloaf is an all-encompassing brick of bland food that is given to prisoners who are acting up. Well, the taste ranges from agreeable to straight up awful. Prisoners forced to eat this meal for days or even weeks are driven crazy. Some were so upset with the dinner that they even sued the prison for cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment, a maneuver that had previously succeeded in getting gruel off the menu. But surprisingly, after 22 lawsuits, Foodloaf is still a thing. And perhaps this is the reason that prisoners will go to extreme lengths to innovate in-cell cooking methods just for a simulation of real food. And so perhaps, if you and I wouldn't consider bucket cooking to be suitable for feeding an animal, behind bars, it's probably like eating at a 5-star restaurant, at least by comparison of whatever's going on down in the cafeteria.
All the ingredients that we put, raisins and carrots, beans, spinach somewhere in the middle. You are not supposed to use any forks, just your bare hands. That was the part of punishment, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
I think so. I know that you're going to appreciate that.
Oh wow, Foodloaf. I mean, the name is hilarious, like punishment food. Wait, I'm gonna contribute for once because I did a little research on this. And it turns out that Foodloaf, they do put toppings on it just to like enhance the punishment.
Please.
So we have a little of
I'm not going to eat so much
chili sauce.
chili sauce.
This is the whole point of this episode. And this format is to try something new, and we want to be authentic here. Foodloaf is supposed to be nasty.
I mean, like, it was nasty to begin with. You don't need to make it more
I don't want
nasty.
to get myself in trouble, so I better slow down a little bit.
So you put all this crap on my plate, but not on yours.
I'm trying to serve you. I'm trying to be... All right, we can both try yours because it's a little more authentic. They'll be eating this for like a month straight. It's not just a one-time occurrence, but it's like an ongoing thing. So after a while, you just go mad.
Don't be a baby. It's not that bad. I don't know, maybe I just have like, some...
So, write in the comment section below which one of us would last longer in prison.